Democratic Congressman Marc Veasey of Fort Worth. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. As you know, the U.S. Supreme Court has now struck down affirmative action using race for college admissions, calling it unconstitutional. What's your reaction?
Very disappointed, not unexpected. I think that a lot of conservative legal minds and a lot of conservative attorneys and legal groups around the country have been wanting to strike down affirmative action for some time. I think that it's sad that, these current Supreme Court justices, many of which, invited African Americans to sit during their confirmation hearings, to sit right behind them, to perhaps show the rest of the country, to show African Americans that they wouldn't be hostile towards African Americans. Some have Black family members. Many talked about diverse experiences in their neighborhoods and other organizations that they were involved with that sort of led them to diverse experiences. And you look at a man like Chief Justice Earl Warren, who was perhaps single-handedly more responsible for putting more Japanese Americans in internment camps than any other person before he was on the court. But something changed throughout his life. And despite, if he were alive today, he'd be over 100 years old. So despite probably not having any Black friends or not viewing Blacks as social equals, he knew he had to do something, and he voted and ruled the right way on Brown versus the Board of Education and other subsequent decisions that the court had before it dealing with integration in America. And he did that without these same social interactions. And so it's disturbing that we're going back, that a lot of Chief Justice Warren's decisions that were so instrumental in social education, economic progress in this country for Black Americans has just been rolled back by this court. I think that it's sad, and I think that it's really unfortunate that despite some of their experiences, they still just don't get it.
Well, I wanted to read to you some of the justices and what they said in their opinions. Justice Sotomayor wrote that the decision, quote, rolls back decades of precedent and momentous progress. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson wrote, this is truly a tragedy for us all. She said, with let them eat cake obliviousness today, the majority pulls the ripcord and announces colorblindness for all by legal fiat. But deeming race irrelevant in law does not make it so in life. And then Justice Thomas criticized Justice Jackson and saying that she claims, quote, locks Blacks into seemingly perpetual inferior caste. Such a view is irrational. It is an insult to individual achievement and cancerous to young minds seeking to push through barriers rather than co-sign themselves to permanent victimhood. So what do you make of that statement? I see you shaking your head.
Yeah, first off, very, proud and how profound of, Judge Ketanji Jackson Brown's comments, how it's just, you can feel it to the core, especially with me being a Black American, what she said. And Judge Sotomayor, and how disappointing that Clarence Thomas would say what he said when his confirmation hearings were not going the right way. It was the Black community in this country that said, maybe if he gets in there, he will see the light and he will change. It was Black people that said that he shouldn't, have his chance to replace Thurgood Marshall in the Supreme Court thrown away. Maybe he will change, and he's just gotten worse. It was Black people that had his back, and he's forgotten that history because that thing was not going the direction in which he wanted. And it's unfortunate that whatever is going on in his head, that he would say something like that. I find it profoundly disappointing, but I'm disappointed in the other ones too. I'm disappointed in Amy Coney Barrett. She goes to she graduated from a law school that has an undergraduate program that's intentionally This undergraduate program at Notre Dame is intentionally very Catholic. I think the student body is probably 80+% Catholic. They can be very intentional about wanting to keep that student body that Catholic at one of the country's finest universities. But you can't be intentional about wanting to have a diverse student body. That's just wrong. What it says is that it's okay to create certain systems and create breaks, whether they're legacies, whether they're a certain religion, whether they're athletes or musicians, that you can create and be intentional in these areas. But when it comes to diversity on your campus for just regular student bodies and high achieving students that are Black and brown, that you can't. And that is just wrong. So disappointing across the board for all of these justices today, all of these 6 that voted the way that they did.
And I wanted to ask you, going forward, what do you think needs to happen on college campuses and universities?
I think that it's going to be bad. I mean, I mean, college can be a really great, diverse experience, but college can also be a place where you see like a lot of racial and religious intolerance too. We still have, Greek fraternal and sorority systems on this campus that still think it's okay to not let people in your sorority or fraternity because of their religion or because of their race. And with student body populations across the country at state universities and select universities, having a smaller Black population where these kids are not going to have that social interaction and see other people as their social equals, you're probably going to see hostilities like that become even worse. And so I think that it's going to be very important for colleges to look for different ways that they can increase their Black and brown populations. I think it's going to be tough. I mean, you look at University of Texas right now, you're talking about a campus in Austin that is still only 5% Black. You're talking about a campus in Austin that is still less than 10% Hispanic in a city and a state that's heavily Hispanic. And despite all of their outreach efforts, and I know they've been earnest in their outreach efforts because I used to be in the state legislature, they can still only get paltry numbers in these areas. And it's only going to get worse because the message that was sent by the Supreme Court and the 6 justices today is if you are Black or brown, do not, unless you can throw a football or run or shoot a basketball really well, do not apply. That's the message that was sent to Black and brown families today.
But I was talking to before former TEA Commissioner Michael Williams, a Republican, and he said there are other ways that colleges and universities can have diverse student populations without using race as, they can look at their backgrounds, they can look where they're from, they can look at whether they're economically disadvantaged and still pull together a diverse campus. What do you think of that?
First, I know Michael very well. Worked with him when I was in the state legislature, and he lives here in the Metroplex. But my first thing I would say is, again, if a kid that has a 2.5 can get in because you think that he can run the 40 faster than anyone else, then why can't a kid with a 4.0 get in that may have a 1200 on their SAT instead of a 1300 on their SAT? There's something wrong with that. Like, if you think that it's okay to give that kid a break, but it's not okay to give this Black kid a break, that's a problem that this country needs to try to unpack. That's a problem, because you're seeing people in certain racial and gender roles, and you're saying that it's okay if we give them a break in this area, but not in that area. And that is something much deeper that we don't have time to delve into today, that people need to look into their hearts over. The second thing that I would say is that he's right. They will be able to look at other circumstances. But again, when you look at a university as large as the University of Texas, one of the top state universities in the entire country, and the fact that they are still only at 5% Black and about 8 or 9% Hispanic, despite their tremendous outreach efforts. And I can remember when I was in the state legislature and the late Bill Powers was the president of UT, he was very intentional about wanting to recruit more Black and brown students. And even with top 10% and affirmative action, they just were not able to. It's going to get worse. It is going to get worse, and it's going to make these campuses less open and less welcoming to Black and brown students. That's just a matter of fact.
And my last question to you, Congressman, and I appreciate your time. When I was talking to Michael Williams, he said the emphasis is now also going to have to be on elementary school education, even before that, and middle school and high school learning to get these students, all students, better prepared for college. Your thoughts?
Obviously we need to be making progress in that area. But why are we not paying teachers more? Why are we not doing more for a lot of these lower income students that come from that are being raised by their grandparents? We have more and more kids whose parents are incarcerated, who's being raised by their grandparents or great grandparents that have been in and out of a bunch of different apartment complexes and different school systems. Why are we not doing anything to look at those? Because so we can do more when it comes to elementary, but if we don't get to the root cause of a lot of this, which includes taking a look historically about how we got to the place that we are right now, then it's not going to matter. We have to be able to do that if we really want to address this situation. And I think today's ruling by this court seems that there's absolutely not an appetite in conservative America or on this court to take a look at history.
Democratic Congressman Marc Veasey of Fort Worth, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Jack.